So this one, again, I'm doing just into chicken wire, so I'm using that container there. And I've just got a bowl inside here, plastic bowl, and I've got the chicken wire inside. And I popped some foliage in here. We've got some spotted laurel, some acuba, some skimmia, got some of the winter box in there, a little bit of black elder, the Sambucus nigra, some Elaeagnus pungens maculata, some Rhamnus alternus variegata, some Thuya. And if you put that on a moderate heat for half an hour, so yeah, a bit of greenery basically, a few snippings in there. Well, as our gardens are sort of really coming to the end of summertime and we're moving into autumn time, then this is the time of year, isn't it, for thinking about bulbs. And I've got some rather lovely bulbs just in our little ladies' chapter to the side here. And one bulb that I love growing every year are alliums. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about alliums because I know lots of people will grow alliums. We've got Purple Sensation in there, which is your archetypal one, which is your first one, which comes out when Chelsea's on, so it's known as the Chelsea allium. And dead easy to grow, will come up in your garden each year for you. But if you want some different alliums, we've got wonderful Allium Christophii, which is for its seed heads. Beautiful, beautiful seed heads. Absolutely gorgeous things. And they're perfect for drying. I've also got a new allium, which is an allium called Schubertii Magic, which has seed heads the size of footballs, really enormous, in the most beautiful, really sort of lilac shade of purple. And they flower a little bit after Allium Purple Sensation, so they flower into June time. If you want an allium that flowers in August, then you want Allium Bullet, commonly called Allium sphaerocephalum. But Allium Bullet is its easier name. And that is fabulous, and it's like a chive on acid. It's like a big chive, you know, quite tall. The bees and the butterflies absolutely love it, because one thing that I like to do when I garden, I don't use pesticides in my garden. I try and garden, you know, all environmentally friendly. And I try and let nature take its balance. We've got a hedgehog at the minute, which comes every night, who we feed. And it's so lovely having, you know, Mrs. Tiggerwinkle come to visit you every night. Sends the dogs absolutely berserk, but she's not bothered, she ignores them. But it's so nice to get nature back into your gardens, isn't it? And, you know, for all of you who've got another generation following you, or perhaps you've got a few past generations coming on where you've got grandchildren, great-grandchildren even, then we need to look after our planet, don't we? So if we can, you know, get some balance in nature, that's really important. And, oh, it's really coming down now, isn't it? Shall I go on for another half hour? Because you don't want to leave yet, do you? I can lend you a bin bag if anybody's not brought a trolley. And what I try and do is get plants that I know the bees and the butterflies like. Now, if you want a really great allium that doesn't really look like an allium at all, not good for the dahlias, this, Robert, is it? It's one that's actually called Allium siculum. And it's really so lovely. Have a look at the picture of it in there. It's got pendulous heads, so rather than going up like an allium, it droops down. When the flowers finish, it shoots back up again. And its posh name is Nectaro Scorlander. I need to crump myself up a bit. Can you not hear me over the rain? I'll shove it up a bit higher. Step just set to the bishop. There we go. Does that sound better? Yep. I'll try and project. Is that better? Turn your hearing aids up, folks. Yeah, you want Allium siculum. Now, it's known as the honey allium because the bees absolutely go berserk. They absolutely love it. If you want to get a flower that's a little bit different, flowering in your gardens in July time, you want to grow something that's called Tritalia. And it used to be called Brodia, but it's changed its name. And it's something that we buy in floristry as a cut flower, but I didn't realise up until about sort of 5 or 6 years ago, we can grow it in our gardens. And it's a South African native, so it needs a sunny spot. It's fully hardy, it's winter hardy, but just needs sunshine in your garden. And if you're growing Tritalia, it's quite interesting because the leaves come first and then the flowers come after. So you'll buy a packet tonight if you want to be kind to this poor old florist. Yeah, if you buy a packet, you'll set the bulbs, and then in summertime you see all these little green leaves starting to shoot up. You think, oh, that's dead exciting, they're coming. And then they'll die and nothing will happen. And you'll think, well, that blasted Jonathan Moseley sold us some dud bulbs. But don't despair, ladies and gentlemen, because the leaves die down and then the flowers follow. And it's like a mini blue agapanthus. Really, really pretty. But its vase life as a cut flower is 6 weeks, so really long lasting. And if you get them growing in your garden, they'll just be like crocus or snowdrops. They'll naturalise, they'll come back for you year after year after year. So, a few little interesting ideas there for different bulbs to grow, because I always think when you plant bulbs at this time of year, it's all about optimism, isn't it? You're planning for next spring, you're planning for what's coming forward, for what's following on. And we need to be optimistic, don't we? As gardeners, we are all certainly very optimistic, because gardening's trial and error, isn't it? And when I'm doing all the talks at the various flower shows, everybody comes up to you and they've got a gardening problem, a gardening issue. And I always say to people, well, if it was easy, everybody would do it, wouldn't it? But if everything grew and it was easy, we'd get bored, wouldn't we? Because some years you have a good year with something, some years you have a flop, you have a bad year with something. But sometimes, when it's the gardener's Q&A panels that I sit on, it's quite funny because somebody will see, oh, excuse me, I've got a question. I've got this thing in my garden. I don't know its name. Oh, what does it look like? Well, it's green. Does it flower? Yes, yellow. What's its flowers like? Well, it's sort of a bit like a sunflower, but it's a bit more like a thistle, really. What is that? How big does it get? Well, it got to about sort of 4 foot, and then it got some buds coming on, and I chopped most of it down. Do you think I've killed it? What will I do? How have you got a clue? How have you got a clue? Or people come with a sample, which is quite frightening. And people have a little plastic bag, and this is often a big RHS event, and they'll say, I brought this plant in that's diseased. Or they'll bring insects in, and then they'll empty it out and they'll say, oh, they were alive when I brought them here. So, to keep a straight face sometimes is really quite challenging. Well, my final flower in this last arrangement for tonight here to support All Hallows Church at Harthill is a chrysanthemum. And I'm using a chrysanthemum traditionally teamed with the dahlias here in homage to Harthill Horticultural Association, which has its annual show, doesn't it? Here in Harthill, of course, where else would it be? And my granddad used to grow chrysanthemums to show. And as a little boy, I spent lots of time watching him bag chrysanthemums up to stop the weather getting to them. And then I would go with him to the show. And he would get his little bit of cotton wool from around the stem and unwrap it. And then he would get a cotton wool bud that is secreted from, the bathroom. And he would tweak every petal. And it was so competitive. And I used to go along with him. We used to go to Workshop Show, Dinton Show, obviously Harthill Show, a couple of other shows around this neck of the woods. And I used to think, how boring is this, watching him fiddle about with these chrysanthemums? And he would say, why don't you start to grow chrysanthemums? Well, I wasn't so interested. I started to grow plants, and my first entry was a coleus plant. I won my first prize with a coleus, but we used to grow begonias and geraniums and gloxinias and all sorts of things. But there used to be this bit at Harthill Show that used to fascinate me, which was always on the stage at the back. And Auntie June Oliver sat down here, was part of the WI, and they would put like a WI display on where they'd do lots of arrangements. It was all very elaborate. And I used to think, well, I'd love to be a part of that. And now I've demonstrated at WI conferences where there's been about 5,000 WI members. I'm word perfect in Jerusalem. And I can spot a good scone from a mile away. And I know if a sponge has got a soggy bottom, believe me. But they had this bit where they called it a domestic section. And you could do buttonholes and corsages and make an arrangement out of a vase of flowers. And bear in mind, my granddad was a miner, and I was the only grandchild. And he never once said, that's not what lads do, they don't do that bit. It was like, you have a bash at it, you have a go at it if you want to do that bit. And I would make a flower arrangement, or I'd make a buttonhole or a corsage. I didn't really know what I was doing because nobody had shown me. But I would enter and I might get a third, and then I get a second, and then I get a first. And then after a few years, I was going after those shiny trophies. And really, it was here at Harthill, particularly at Harthill Flower Show, where I learnt my trade, really, and I learnt how to compete and how you had to really work hard to get a prize. But also, I learnt that horticulture is a really lovely place to be in. Everybody's friendly, everybody's kind, people don't judge, people help each other and support each other. And then I went on to join flower clubs and be part of the flower club world. And then I get invited to come back and do this in lovely places like All Hallows Church. And the nice thing about this is, I'm now, 50 years on, this wonderful building is still here, isn't it? And we want it to survive. So tonight's all to raise funds for the upkeep of this church. And I want to say a huge big thank you to the church council, who are the local people from the church who have organised this event, sold the tickets, and done all the sort of backroom stuff here. I'd like to say a big thank you to Paul, who has been a huge big part of this, and who our idea germinated together a while ago now. And I would ask you, to support the church, because it is a living part of this community, isn't it? And for me as a little boy, the excitement when the cross went up at Christmas time, or the manger was outside with Mary and Joseph, I was so excited. And we don't want to lose these special places, do we? They're part of our history. So if you can buy another bit of raffle tickets later, because everything I've done is going in the raffle, then please do support the raffle. There'll be a chance to buy a few more tickets in a moment. But most of all, if you've enjoyed tonight, pick a few flowers. Give a few flowers as a gift, because you're cheering somebody's day up, aren't you, really? It doesn't have to be something elaborate. You've learnt now you don't have to bung them in. But my final top tip is, remember to spray as well. And I always say this because it costs you nothing. This is a bit of water in here. I've already talked about putting flower food in what they suck up. This is just tap water in here. If you can mist and spray twice a day, on average you get 5 days longer from your flowers. So what's not to love about that? So I'm going to ask for just a moment's patience while I just put this final design together. I'm going to sit that one there. And here's a